Today on Trad Takes, dismantling the Department of Education and reconsidering the EPA. All this and more on Trad Takes. Welcome to episode 11 of Trad Takes, hosted by the Traditionalists. Thank you for joining me on this second Lenten edition. We're already nearly 2 weeks through Lent. As always, these Lenten editions are less structured, less researched, and I'm just going to talk about any random thing I want to. I have no idea what's going to happen. What I do know we'll do is, like we do every week, read some of the comments on last week's video. And I want to start out again with, I am not afraid I was born to do this, had a quite lengthy couple of comments on the tariff details. I'm not going to read the comments at length because, as mentioned, they are quite long. And the point being made was that importers are often the ones that pay the tariff. And while that's certainly the case, you are correct that that is the case for a lot of industries. It's not the case across the board. So in my industry in particular, I deal with capital equipment, and I have personally dealt with importing capital equipment from other countries. And my company's Incoterms, they're called, which is how you deal with the import process, actually specifies that the exporting country is the one that pays any duties, right? And basically, they pay all the duties and taxes and everything until it gets into our door. So because that's my experience with it, that's the example I used when talking about, I think I was coming up with a situation with Canada. So if US puts a 25% tariff on Canada, then in my case, with capital equipment, and the way we have our Incoterms set up, Canada actually will pay that 25%, which in turn simply means that they charge us more when they bill us for that equipment. And again, that's one example. Crops and things like you lay out in your example. I'm sure you're right that the importer is usually on the hook for those paying those tariffs. So thanks for pointing that out. I think we could get into a lot of detail about the different industries and different ways that these tariffs are dealt with, but then everyone would stop listening, no doubt. So thank you. I am not afraid I was born to do this, for continuing to comment and bringing up great points. Another comment here worth bringing up is from DT, suggesting that we are deleting his or her comments. And that is not the case. I don't delete comments. I don't think any of the other hosts on the Traditionalists delete comments. So if you're leaving comments and they're getting deleted, you're probably saying something that is getting caught by the YouTube algorithm, which is deleting them automatically. But yeah, rest assured, you can leave any comment you want. YouTube may delete it, but I will not delete it. So that is not what's happening to your comments. I'm sorry that they're getting deleted. Then there are a couple of other comments which are always bound to happen anytime I say anything negative regarding President Trump. From Empty Seat 48 says, "Get the frustration, but have to trust Trump. He knows what he's doing." And from Janet R 5693, "We don't know what President Trump knows." Agreed, we don't know what President Trump knows, but we do know basic economics and how tariffs affect our country and our citizens. And if Trump knows that, he doesn't act like he does. And I don't think it's unreasonable to point out when he makes blunders like this that will not only impact the American people and their purchasing power in the short term, but in the long term, even if it does have long-term benefits about bringing more manufacturing into the country, which I'm all for, by the way, the short-term losses and the long-term gains don't balance out in my mind. There are other ways for the government to encourage manufacturing within the United States. You could use subsidies, which I don't necessarily agree with. Or more realistically, you can eliminate unnecessary regulations and lower the tax rate for corporations. That's a great way to bring companies into the United States without first having this years-long pain of massive inflation due to the tariffs that you levy. Like, I understand the desire to bring more manufacturing and making the United States more self-sufficient. Again, I'm 100% for that. But doing it in this way is short-sighted and foolish. It's going to hurt the American people, one. It's going to hurt your political platform, two. 2026 is going to be a political bloodbath for the Republicans if these tariffs continue. Say goodbye to having the House and Senate. Now you're just going to have a lame duck president with Democrat Congress, all because you wanted to throw your weight around and put tariffs on everything. And that's to say nothing of 2028. So if you truly think that tariffs, and I'm talking to President Trump here because I know he's listening, if you truly think that you're doing the right thing and that you have a moral obligation to put these tariffs on all these countries for the benefit of America, good on you, I suppose, but take a step back and look at it pragmatically. You're killing yourself, you're killing the Republicans, and you're killing our economy, which is the very thing, the very reason you got elected. And so even if you think that these tariffs are the right thing to do, which they're not, parenthetically, then slow your roll a little bit, be a little bit smarter and more thoughtful about where you levy these tariffs, and keep yourself and your party in a position where you still can do good for the country, rather than sabotage yourself. So thank you, everyone who commented. If I didn't read your comment, it's probably because it was a nice, friendly comment that was good show or hands folded or something along those lines. I tend to read the negative ones because they are the most fun to talk and react to. But do continue to leave comments, and we will get to them next week. So I spent a lot of time in the last couple of episodes pointing out Trump's failures. Let's bring up one of his wins. And I'm reading a piece here from NPR, of all places. Sometimes it's fun to read the left-wing ones because you can chuckle at the language they use. U.S. Education Department says it is cutting nearly half of all staff. The Trump administration is working towards its promise of eliminating the U.S. Department of Education. That's awesome. On Tuesday evening, the department released a statement saying it would cut nearly 50% of the department's workforce. Impacted staff will be placed on administrative leave beginning March 21st, according to the announcement. The statement confirms that all divisions within the agency will be hit by cuts, but it will continue to deliver programs protected by law, such as formula funding, student loans, Pell Grants, funding for special needs students, and competitive grant making. It goes on and on. According to the announcement, more than 1,300 positions will be cut as a result of this reduction in force, and roughly another 600 employees accepted voluntary resignations or retired over the last 2 months. This is obviously a great thing. The Department of Education is one of those departments that doesn't need to exist. Education should be controlled by the home and the church. But even in our civil society, education should be controlled by the states. There's no point in having the federal government oversee that. The argument that the left often brings up, well, what about FAFSA and student loans and other such things that the federal government handles through the Department of Education? And I would look at all those things and say, I bet you all of these things could be handled better and more efficiently and more productively at the state level. So I think they could, and I know they're kind of taking the slow roll here. Well, slowish. It's actually pretty fast for government, but they're just chopping it in half currently. and then probably letting it limp along for a little bit before they close it down entirely. At least that's my hope. So that is some great news. Again, news 10 years ago I never would have thought possible. And so what a wonderful world we live in. Speaking of wonderful world, Lee Zeldin, who is President Trump's appointee to director of the EPA, has been doing some wonderful things with the EPA. And the latest news on that front is that the EPA, under Zeldin's leadership, is reconsidering the 2009 endangerment finding. And this 2009 endangerment finding is considered the holy grail of the climate change people. And so Lee Zeldin posted it was a one-page memo basically saying the EPA is going to reconsider this, go after this endangerment finding. And he posted it to X saying, quote, "I've been told that reconsidering the 2009 endangerment finding would be viewed as an attack on the holy grail of climate change religion. Today's announcement, without the slightest amount of apology or regret, is about following the Constitution and rule of law." End quote. Lee Zeldin is becoming one of my favorite of Trump's appointees, and there are many to like, so good job on that crowded field, Mr. Zeldin. He packs a lot into those two sentences on this X post. His first being climate change religion, calling it out for what it is. It's not based on science. It's not based on logic or reason. It's based on faith. You have to have faith, a perverted faith, but you have to have faith to believe in all of this climate stuff. So pointing it out as a climate change religion was a bold move, and I appreciate that. And then second is that he and others are not doing these things just as a hammer-fisted way to win the culture war. We got elected, so now we're going to bury you type of deal. The reason we're doing all this is about, exactly as he says it, following the Constitution and the rule of law. And if you're looking for that line, right, I have positive stories that I'm really excited about this president and this administration, and then I have negative stories where I'm really disappointed in them. That's typically that line. I'm happy about securing the border because the border is not a culture issue. It's an issue with the rule of law. We are a nation of laws, and illegal immigration is illegal and should be stopped. This endangerment finding that the EPA implemented in 2009 is not constitutional, and so therefore we should simply stop it. Not to go back to tariffs, but tariffs, on the other hand, and the way Trump is using them, is actually sort of unconstitutional. Tariffs were meant by the Founding Fathers to be levied by Congress, not by the president. And then over time, the Congress slowly but surely gave in and gave that power back to the executive branch where it never should have been. And in theory, they could take it back. That's the line. The line is, are you doing what you're doing for the good of America and in line with the Constitution and rule of law? If so, almost everything they're doing is wonderful. But you step outside of that, you start using executive orders in ways that they shouldn't be used, or levying tariffs willy-nilly, or say stupid things like we're going to take over Gaza, then we as Americans should have a problem with that. We should want our elected leaders, whether Republican or Democrat, whether in our eyes good or bad, to stay in their lanes and do the correct thing as laid out by the Constitution. So thank you, Lee Zeldin, for doing what you're doing on the EPA. Keep up the good fight. We are rooting for you. The final story I wanted to mention briefly is a little bit of schadenfreude. Jasmine Crockett, who is a Democrat representative from Texas, has said that we need illegal immigrants in our country. And the reason, she says, we need illegal immigrants in our country is because we need someone to pick the crops and clean our hotel rooms because we are educated people and we don't want to do those things. And I don't think I need to comment too much on that. I personally disagree. I don't think that some humans are lower in rank or status than others. We're all made in the image and likeness of God, and we shouldn't look down upon them just because they're immigrants or they have a different skin color than we do. But that's just me. I understand that potentially our elected officials do think that there are people who are subhuman who should be doing our dirty work for us educated folks. So, Jasmine Crockett, I don't know what to tell you. I know you're African American, but maybe do we need to pull the race card on you? Pretty funny. That sound means we're all out of time for today. Thank you for listening to this special, shorter, and less professional edition, the Lenten edition of Trad Takes. Please like, share, and subscribe to The Traditionalists. Spread the word for my show, Trad Takes, or for any of the other shows hosted by The Traditionalists. And do remember to leave a comment. It could be the one I start off the next show with. This is Eric signing off. God bless you all, and God bless these United States of America.